Hey, Alex.
What's going on, Brandon? How are you?
Not much. How are you?
Doing well.
Oh, good.
Got probably the best suntan you'll ever see from the event I was at on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. I can relate to that. I've had some pretty bad suntans. Is it a sunburn right now, or is it?
Yes.
Actually
Yeah.
a tan?
It's not a tan. It's a burn.
Oh, okay.
Luckily, I'm facing this way, and you can't see like the back of my neck. But yeah, I was at the big EV event on Wednesday at the State House. There's a new bill that's being proposed right now, so we were just out there in support of it. So took the day off work and kind of did a little ride and drive. But it was supposed to be like overcast and possibly raining the whole day. So I wore a t-shirt and jeans and brought a rain jacket. And it rained for about less than an hour, and it wasn't even heavy rain. It just sprinkled, and then it was like bright sunlight and 80 degrees the rest of the day, which I mean was great, but I did not wear sunscreen or anything. So I've got the typical farmer's tan going on. But I was also wearing a lanyard, and you can see a defined line on the back of my neck that's just like white skin where the lanyard was.
That's hilarious.
So I've got peak tan lines right now from the event. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, before we talk more details about the event, I think talking about clothes is a great lead-in to our announcement. We finally have Living Electric merchandise that is now officially live and available to purchase.
We do, yeah. So if you're watching this episode, you probably see the updated branding. We just kind of finalized that and got that released. So we've got updated branding everywhere, a little bit more modern. The original design was getting us through, but we wanted to update things a little bit. So we've got the updated branding, and then we've also got some merch out there finally for the Living Electric listeners. Most of the stuff just says like Living Electric on it, which we think is a good mantra, right?
Yep,
so
exactly. Yeah. And if you listen to the full episode, at the end we will provide a discount code for your first order. So
yes. So
definitely
make sure you listen all the way through, and we'll give you all the details, and it'll be linked down below as well for the website and where you can pick some up. And all the proceeds from that help benefit the podcast. Like, we're not trying to get rich off this. Like, this is to support the like Zoom license we use to record and our equipment to record to just make a higher quality podcast. So any support is appreciated.
Definitely. Well, Alex, so let's go back to that event that you were attending. That was Tuesday? Was that Wednesday or Tuesday?
It was Wednesday. Yeah, Wednesday.
So, okay,
it was yesterday.
Yep. Yesterday. Okay.
We're recording on a Thursday. This drops on Monday morning, so it doesn't matter.
Yes.
It was
keep everybody organized with our schedule, because I can't keep track of dates anymore. So
yeah.
So what exactly was the event?
Yeah, so it was run by Clean Fuels Ohio, and they're essentially like more of a nonprofit organization that helps support cleaner fuels in Ohio. It's a great name, obviously, but a lot of times they're helping lobby politicians or just working with local organizations to help electrify transportation is a big part of it. Obviously, EVs have gotten pretty big. They originally started off, I think, over 10 years ago doing like compressed natural gas and like a bunch of these other kind of alternative fuels, but it's majority electric now just because that's really the route things are heading. But there's this new bill being proposed in Ohio, and I don't know if you know about this or not. It's Senate Bill 307, I believe. But it's the Accelerating Ohio's Auto Industry Bill. I don't know if you've probably heard that. Yeah,
I
that's
am
like
familiar
the number.
with that. Yeah.
So,
when it comes to like Bill's number, I feel like if there was just like a straight title, like a thesis, I'd be like, oh yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, when there's numbers involved, it's just it's a lot.
So I haven't read the whole bill, but it's got a lot of good stuff in there. And the main thing is just making electrification easier and helping us scale electrification as well. So if you're an EV driver, you know very well that it is hard to find people to work on your cars. And it's also hard to buy an EV because we don't have a lot of EVs available. And they're also expensive sometimes up front. So this bill addresses a lot of those things, provides better funding for educating people on how to repair EVs. So funding for trade schools and stuff like that to actually train people on how how to work on EVs, because I think you brought that up before. If something goes wrong with your car, it's like they got to bring somebody in out of state. They got to like fly somebody in from somewhere to look at your car, because that's the only expert on it. So just educating more people about how to work on the cars, but then also funding for retooling factories so that we can build batteries and build cars in Ohio instead of outsourcing them overseas or to other states, because Ohio's got a lot of incredible workforce here that we really need to put to work. So
for sure.
We've got a huge opportunity with electrifying everything. So that's kind of the main things that bill is targeting. So we were out there doing ride and drives with politicians, with their staff, just with anybody walking by downtown. Basically, because I mean, as we say all the time, butts and seats is like the best way to educate people. It's just getting people in an EV to actually experience it, just so they can write better laws and be better informed on the topic. So, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you feel like it was like well received, like from like some of the representatives?
I think so. It was tough because it's a weekday. It was a work day for them. So they were in session most of the day. So I don't think we got as heavy traffic as normal. But I thought everybody we talked to was really receptive to the idea. Nobody was like an EV hater coming up. A lot of them were very just interested and wanted to learn. And there was a Rivian there as well, which I think helped. So there was many people there that were like, I want to take a ride in the Rivian.
Yeah.
So
I want to take a ride in a Rivian.
Right. So that turned a lot of heads and attracted a lot of attention. And I think anytime you can kind of just have a conversation with people, it's super valuable. So
nice. Well, did they give any words on like when that bill might like pass, or like when they're going to vote on it?
So I believe it's being introduced in the Senate right now. So
okay,
it's got to go through the Senate. It's got to be debated on, then go to the House, and then pass. And I don't know. It could go anywhere from here. But it's being kind of being proposed right now and being brought up for discussion. So we just want to kind of show our voice and bring some cars out there and show that there's a lot of Ohioans in support of it. So
yeah, nice. Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, Ohio has like deep roots in the automotive industry. Like, I mean, in Cleveland, actually just like 15 minutes away, the Broncos engine is manufactured here in Cleveland. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So like a lot of the manufacturing plants are in this area in Columbus. I mean, obviously you have Honda down in like Marysville. Yep. Like there's a lot of manufacturers here, and there's a lot of skilled people who could be, getting jobs in this industry. Like, exactly. I think the thing is that there's a lot of stigma and fear that the EV revolution and like, introducing more electric vehicles is going to take people's jobs away. Right. And it might in some aspects, unless they're not trained on it. But I think it's going to introduce a lot of opportunities for people. Right.
And that's exactly what this bill is trying to address too, because they're probably trained on ICE engines, but they're just not trained on EVs yet. So, and that doesn't mean that you can't learn that stuff. So if you've got a car background and if you've got a little bit of interest in it, I can't imagine it's too difficult to kind of make that transition. So definitely.
Nice. Well, I'm glad the event was a success. After I saw that, like it was put out there and I kept thinking, I'm like, can I make it down there? But just couldn't take the day.
I ended up taking the day off work, and I was there most of the day, so it was a long day for sure. But got to see a lot of cool vehicles, a lot of Teslas there, obviously, as with any event. A couple Mach-E's there. The Rivian was there, like I said. So met the owner of that. He actually used to work at Rivian. Doesn't anymore, but he just took delivery of his like last month, I think. So it's like that's essentially awesome. Brand new. Took a ride with him. He was showing me a bunch of the software features. Like, just Rivian's done an excellent job with that vehicle. Like, it's really cool. They just added like some good features like preconditioning for not supercharging, but fast charging. They just built that into their maps. So good. They did that, and just have added a lot of smart stuff that modern EVs should have. So
hey, that's great.
They've done a good job with that.
Yeah, and I mean, not to like change subjects, but you brought up like the upgrading to like have preconditioning available for like Rivians. I'm assuming when it was first delivered, it didn't have that, which just proves
that was a software update. Yep.
I was gonna say like how necessary over-the-air software updates can be for vehicles.
Yes.
Especially with that feature. I mean, to
Right.
have a warm battery, especially in colder temperatures.
Yeah.
Yeah, EVs should
Definitely.
have that, but it just shows that like software can change anything pretty
Yes.
much. That's
Yeah,
great.
they also added HomeLink remotely. So I guess
Oh.
it already had the hardware for it, and they just pushed a software update to enable it. So that
Oh,
was another
sweet.
thing they enabled.
Nice.
So.
Well, now if they can only enable one pulling into my driveway, that would.
Right.
Yeah. One day.
Right. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I'm happy to hear that it was a success and people received it well.
Definitely. The other cool vehicle, before we move on to the next topic, the other cool one was the, I think Horizon is the name of it. Name of the company.
I don't think I've ever heard of that.
And they're based in Tip City. I'm just double checking the name of this right here. But they make this thing called the Flex Quad. Have you seen this thing before?
Is that what was in your Instagram video of like
Yeah.
somebody racing? Okay,
Yep.
I didn't really look at like what they were riding, but
Yeah. It is the strangest like EV I have ridden or driven, I guess. So it's I'll put some videos up here because I took some at the event of some people riding around in it. But it's a 4-wheeled vehicle, and all of the controls are with your feet. So you don't use. There's no hand controls at all. So you kind of sit. It's almost like is it like a recliner bike, or like what are those bikes called that like sit like low to the ground?
I'm just gonna say recliner bike.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it. People are yelling into their phones right now. But,
I was gonna say, let us know on Twitter or the comment sections. Like, yeah, obviously our heavy duty fleet.
Yeah, exactly. So the controls are you put your feet on these two little pedals, and when you tilt both of your feet forward, it goes forward. When you push your heels in, it brakes.
Oh,
and then to
interesting.
steer, you like swivel your hips almost to like kind of go like that and like turn left and then like turn right. So
where do you put your hands?
You just kind of sit there, and they have like little handlebars you can kind of hang on to, but like you don't really have to do anything with your hands. So
Interesting.
very interesting. Yeah.
Huh. So it's almost like an exoskeleton in a way. Like it's like enhancing your body movements.
Kinda. Because all the steering is like just with your hips, and then like you push your toes to move forward. So it's really interesting. Like unlike any vehicle I've ridden, the controls are completely different. So it's cool to see companies trying these new things. So
yeah. And I think we should definitely do an episode on what could be considered an EV, because it's not just commercial vehicles. Obviously, there's so many different aspects to being an electric vehicle.
Definitely.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
We should get the owner on the podcast.
I was going to say I got their information. I've got their website, so I'll probably contact them and see if we can do an episode, because that'd be really cool to chat about.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I guess that's the best thing about those events is that you never know what will show up. Like,
right. Yeah.
I know we talked about like getting involved with like different like local groups and like organizations, but like if you really want to experience what's out there, just go to those events, because you never know. It's not just Teslas. Like you get stuff like that.
And it's gotten even better in the past year or two with all the new vehicles coming out. So like everyone I go to, there's a vehicle there I haven't seen before, which is like so cool.
That's awesome.
I definitely echo those sentiments that if you're interested in EV, like you don't necessarily need to own one to go to these events, because we see a lot of EV owners at these events. Like we love seeing new people that want to learn about it. So definitely check them out.
Nice. And could we include some information on the event that you went to yesterday in the bill? Like
yes, I'll link like Clean Fuels Ohio's website on it, because they have a good little write up on it and links to the bill and all that stuff. How you can support it, how you can email people to voice your support, all that fun stuff. So
yeah, definitely. Nice. Well, do you want to transition to our more opinionated category of today's episode, or do you want to talk about EV reliability first?
Let's move on to the West Virginia factory.
Okay.
I think that's a good segue from the bill that's improving Ohio factories.
Yes. So. Okay. Well, just to preface this before we dive into this is going to be a little bit more of an opinionated piece. I actually feel like we tend to talk about our opinions on this episode, but this is going to be specifically about terminology here.
Right.
So recently there was an announcement that there's a company called Sparks with a Z, and they're building what they are calling a Gigafactory in West Virginia to commercialize use of manufacturing zero cobalt batteries, which is exciting. It's really exciting to see that battery technology is advancing like that to the point where we should hopefully start seeing cobalt-free battery packs.
Right.
What's really cool about this is that it is in a state that is kind of pushing back towards EVs, more coal-focused, West Virginia. They don't have any fast chargers except for Tesla charging stations in West Virginia. All the other charging stations are all level 2s. So it's really interesting that Sparks chose West Virginia to build this battery plant. One other piece of information I want to give about Sparks is that they are planning on opening up a solid-state battery plant in California as well. So they are a big player in battery manufacturing. Which is good. I think that they're going to bring a lot of good job opportunities to West Virginia, especially as a state that has been so coal reliant for generations, to really see them kind of step into the future of energy.
Definitely.
But this is where the opinion piece comes into this. So I just want to say congrats to West Virginia, congrats to Sparks. It's definitely exciting. But the term Gigafactory, and I'm not sure how many people will agree with me on this, I don't necessarily understand why all these battery factories are now suddenly getting the term Gigafactory. Do you know why? Does Gigafactory mean something with batteries?
I can't think of a reason why. I mean, obviously they're stealing it from Tesla that calls all their factories a Gigafactory.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't believe it means anything in the battery world. I think it just giga as in big, it's a big factory. Because you wouldn't want to call it a kilofactory.
Right.
So
probably not. I something that just popped in my head. I wonder if it's because of gigawatts, just the amount of energy they're going to
Oh, maybe. Yeah, that could play into it.
Just the sheer amount of battery capacity that they're going to create in their battery packs.
Yep. Yeah, because isn't Tesla saying they're going to make a Terra factory or something?
That's news to me. I've never heard that. But I mean, maybe that's it. I was just going to say, that's just my opinion. It's kind of confusing why so many factories, at least battery factories, are now being considered gigafactories.
Yeah.
I don't even really think that the Ultium battery factory here in Ohio is considered, they don't call it a gigafactory. So I don't know if it's just a term that just,
I think it's just
fashionable.
A marketing. Yeah, I think it's just a marketing thing more than anything. Yeah, I think it's just kind of saying gigas and big. We're gonna push out a bunch of production from this factory, so it's a gigafactory. So
yes,
yeah. That's
my
thoughts.
Maybe I'm focusing too much on just the terminology versus the good that this is going to bring to West Virginia.
Right. Right.
I do want to just give a piece of information as well. Senator Joe Manchin was actually at the press event and the announcement for this battery factory, which is huge because he is really known to have intricate ties to the coal industry. So it is kind of, not to get political, but it is kind of cool to see somebody in his position at least attending events where he is learning about batteries and the future of electric vehicles.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah. Yep. So we'll include the link to electrive.com down in the show notes. That way you guys can check out that article.
Yeah. Sounds good.
And if you know why it's called Gigafactory, let me know.
Yeah, I think they're just taking it from if you are familiar with standard units, that goes kilo, mega, giga, tera, peta, and then I just looked it up, but exa is after that. So
oh geez.
10 to the 18th is exa. So eventually we'll have exa factories.
Could you imagine that? It'd just be a statewide sized factory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ohio just disappears. It's just one factory.
Ohio is a factory.
Well, I was going to say, I don't think I've heard, what was the last one you said? Exabyte?
Exa. So mega, giga, tera, so terabyte, peta is above that. So that's 10 to the 15th power.
Okay.
And then exa is 10 to the 18th power.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Do you think we'll ever see hard drives with that size?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's inevitable.
Well, do you think like personal usage? Or like
for
more?
sure. Yeah, for sure.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
Especially as video editors and content producers.
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, like some of the people shooting like 8K videos have like a single video takes like 10 terabytes.
That's true.
It's like
that's true.
It's like you're gonna need something bigger.
Yeah.
So.
I'm 30. May I remind you? I'm getting up there with that.
So another thing we wanted to touch on was just EV reliability and kind of maintenance for EVs, because had to bring my car to the shop recently for some brake service, and probably not for the reason you're thinking, because my brakes were fine. They've actually haven't been used enough, so the brake calipers and the brake pads needed cleaned off and lubricated.
Oh, okay.
So,
interesting.
Yeah, because I think you were asking about my tweet earlier. But yeah, I brought it in for that. And they essentially, like, I think they kind of scrape down, like, the edge of the, like, brake disc and not, like, score it, I guess, but, like, clean it off, like, kind of take that top layer off so it's, like, looking fresh and new. So they did that, and then they just kind of cleaned off the brake pads to make sure nothing was scoring it or causing any issues. So
is that something? Well, one, is that covered under warranty? Like, can you? Oh, you have to pay for that.
Yeah, that's considered like wear and tear. It was a little over $100 to get done, so nothing like crazy.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad.
And they actually recommend it every year in cold weather climates. So I've driven over 2 years now in rain and ice and snow and salts. So my brakes had just been completely gunked up, and you could actually see like some scoring along the brake discs where like particles had got in there. So when I did press on my brakes, it was like scraping my brake discs. So that's part of the reason I brought it in, for them to inspect that and check it out. So they cleaned them off and got them looking brand new. So
gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be my second question, because like I know when like if you don't drive your car for a few days, especially in like humid environments, rust or that like grittiness tend to show up on your discs, and you can drive and slam on your brakes and it will clean that up, or like as you brake. Could you not do that in that instant, or?
No, I think they had stuff like caked on there too much that I couldn't clean them off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
you just need to start driving more.
Clearly, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I did try doing that, like slamming on my brakes a few times, but then they still were dirty, and it's hard with regen too, because like you can't really like slam on your brakes, because the regen kicks in so hard. It's like you're gonna like cause somebody to rear-end you. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. It does bring up the topic of like EV reliability, in the sense of like not just like a battery dying or like a motor failing, like the smaller stuff,
just general car stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like of all the cars that I've owned, I've never actually heard the recommendation that if you don't drive it frequently, or like you bring it in once a year to get your brakes cleaned or lubricated. Like I've never heard of that before.
I hadn't either. I mean, that's what Tesla recommends. I mean, I got away with it for 2 years just fine. So I'd say probably, unless you're noticing your brakes are like looking weird or acting weird, then probably don't need to worry about it. But I mean, other than that, I don't think it's a huge thing to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
So
interesting.
Yeah.
Now I'm like curious about like some of the other like smaller recommendations that they have for like the Model 3s and other Tesla products.
Right. If you go to their like maintenance page, they have a whole write-up on like what they recommend for stuff. Because like I did not take care of my car properly the first like 2 years I had it. It's not till recently I've started like kind of doing the recommended maintenance, because I do want to keep the car for a long time. So I'm trying to make it last, not just the battery and everything else, but also the tires, the brakes, like all that kind of auxiliary stuff. So yeah, they are still cars, I guess, is kind of my point.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
I think we in the EV business like to tout that they're like maintenance free and like you don't need to worry about a thing. But I mean, they're still cars. They still have things that go wrong. and it certainly is less maintenance. Like, I'm glad I don't have to worry about oil changes. I'm glad I don't have to worry about like any kind of fluid changes. I'm glad I don't have to worry about a transmission.
Yep.
Like, a lot of this stuff I'm glad I don't have to worry about anymore. But but I mean, like, I still needed new tires a couple months ago. I still needed to do this brake service. I changed my cabin air filter pretty recently. Like, there's still stuff that needs done. And I don't think that makes it an unreliable car. I think that just makes it like something you have to keep up on in maintenance, just like anything else.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking of it, I don't think I've kept a car long enough to be like, oh, I needed to recommended maintenance. Because I mean, the Bolt was the longest car that we've kept, like in terms of like, time frames and stuff like
Seriously?
that. Like,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, maybe the Model 3 will get to that point where I'll have to get my brakes looked at, but
Yeah.
yeah. But no, I mean, I agree with you. Like, I feel like the whole, like there's zero maintenance is kind of, it's not the truth, like you said. Like, there's so many like small things that are, they're on every single vehicle, regardless of how how it's fueled or powered.
Right.
Like, that can go wrong. So, I mean, it's just good to get familiar with your vehicle and definitely check out the maintenance sites, because I'll be transparent, I've never done that before. So, I will be looking at that after this episode.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
great.
So what kind of prompted this is we found this article stating that ICE cars are more reliable than electric cars. So I'm kind of curious to hear your experience, because you've owned a decent amount of EVs now. Have you noticed them being more or less reliable than gas cars you've owned in the past, or specific issues you've run into that are maybe EV specific?
Yeah. I mean, first off, like all the EVs we've never had issues, like major issues.
Right.
So like we've never had any issues with like the drive unit, motors, batteries, anything like that.
Where it's like undrivable. You can't like
Correct.
move it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously the closest thing that came to that was the battery recall with the Bolt.
Yeah.
But like even then we had no issues, like we never had any error messages like show up or anything. The only issues that we ran into on the majority of our cars were the fit and finish. So like the driver's seat was a major problem for us in the Bolt. We had issues with the tail light on the ID4, the brackets melting and actually like coming loose from like the tailgate. And then we had some software issues. But in all the vehicles that we've owned, I would say no. Like in the oldest car I've ever owned was a 2012 Volt, and it had almost 50,000 miles on it by the time I got rid of it. And even then, like I had no issues. So I'm not exactly sure like where they're finding these studies, and if they're just like a small amount of people
Yeah.
that just happen to have some issues. But
Right.
from our personal experience, we've had zero issues with our vehicles. Yeah.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think just kind of skimming through the article and reading some results of the surveys, I think a lot of the issues stem from software issues. That seems to be the predominant issue with EVs just in general, because they are more computer-centric cars than ICE vehicles. So I think that's part of the issue, and especially with just so many not new companies, but new vehicles coming out, they're ironing a lot of this stuff out. So there is kind of this learning period for them to figure out, all right, like our software needs to be a lot better, or these certain things need fixed. And it's great to rely on software, because you brought up earlier the software updates and adding new features and all that stuff is great. But if you don't have robust software, then it can also be kind of backfire on you. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. I will say, with our 2021 Model 3, the issue we're running into now is phone as key. Like
you didn't mention that.
what if, yeah, it disconnects all the time. Like the car doesn't want to like recognize that we're standing there. Like it's software based, like it's an issue somewhere with the disconnect between our phone and the vehicle. So, but that's the thing, when you have so many different ecosystems and lines of code, there's bound to be a disconnect somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. And like you said, like these vehicles are newer, a lot of the companies are new,
Right.
like, well, at least like Tesla, Lucid, Rivian, a lot of these like startup manufacturers, they're new, and even the legacy manufacturers who are master with like building vehicles doesn't make them masters at coding, like at writing software. Right. So it's going to be really interesting to see how things pan out.
Yeah, so the software is a big piece, and then the other thing they quoted is repair times, which again I think kind of goes back to our previous discussion on training and just having people ready to fix these vehicles, and also just parts too, which I think are an issue across the entire world right now, is getting parts for anything. So. But with EVs specifically, I mean, a lot of these companies are worrying about ramping up production of their normal cars. They're not worried about ramping up surplus parts for repairs. So I think, again, it's just kind of the nature of a lot of these new companies is figuring that out. And then the training as well. So like, because you had an issue with it. Was it with your ID4 where somebody had to like fly in from out of state or something to come diagnose the car?
Well, so it wasn't just out of state; it was in Germany too. So like
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, like you brought up with the bill that Ohio is trying to pass with like getting people trained up on electric vehicles. We had an issue with the ID4 where it was the second week of ownership and the car actually bricked itself because there was like some issue with like the code processing things correctly. So like the car just literally was like, you can't drive me. So we had to have it towed in, and they had to flash the entire vehicle. So they removed all the software from it and worked with engineering teams over in Germany to get a better understanding, because it was the first ID4 that they've ever seen with this issue.
Wow.
At least that's what they claimed. Yeah. So they had to bring in directors from out of state and then work with IT and software developers in Germany to get it fixed. Yeah. And even then, we still had issues with it. About 2 months later, it actually bricked temporarily, and then it started again. Like like nothing happened. And a lot of people are actually starting to run into that problem with their ID4s, where at least the older ones, like,
Interesting.
Yeah. So just be mindful of that. If you ever see, like, if you're an ID4 owner and you're listening to this, and if you see any notifications with, like, the emergency, like, stopping technology and, like, the driver assistance, just know that the car might brick itself at some point temporarily when you see warnings like that.
Fun. Okay.
Yep. So keep an eye out.
So do you think between the software, because the main two they kind of point out in this article, between software and longer repair times, and mind you, they said a typical EV took 5 days to repair compared to 3 days in a gasoline car. So I'm like, okay, that's not like significantly worse.
No. Not at all.
But I'm curious, do you think like between the software and repair times, do you think that makes EVs less reliable than ICE cars?
No, because like I mean, like you said, like a 2-day difference honestly isn't really that big of a deal. Now, the only thing is, and this impacts both gas drivers and EV drivers, if you don't have a loaner, that could be incredibly inconvenient.
Fair.
But the thing is that like you're going to deal with part shortages regardless. Like there's so many cars that are like in car accidents, and they're waiting months for parts to come in regardless.
Yeah.
So I feel like EVs, and now this is just my opinion, I feel like EVs are kind of targeted in the fact that they are a newer vehicle. And since we're still learning about how they operate and like the public and, like the articles like this one, it's so easy to be like, they're less reliable. But if you really look at it from like a grander scope, like it's incredibly similar to what you're dealing with other cars too.
Right. I'd be curious to see this same study done with like only cars made in the past 5 years and see like, did they also have similar issues? Because I'd assume basically any new product that comes out is gonna have hiccups. Like I don't know of a product in history that's come out completely brand new, never produced before, that's had zero issues. That is the nature of like producing things. Like initial runs of products are gonna have issues. That's why like I've always been told, like, never buy the first model year of any car, like, never buy, like, the first of anything, because it's generally going to have some kinks that they're going to work out throughout production. And that's, like you said with the ID4, like, the initial run are having that software issue, but they've probably figured it out on the future cars. So, yeah, You've got to just kind of be careful with that stuff. And I get caught up in it too, because I'm such a tech guy, and I love being at the forefront of all this new technology and owning like the new stuff. But it really can backfire on you if you're not kind of prepared for these kind of issues.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like if you really think of it, like the Bolt is a vehicle that is finally coming up on like year 5 and 6 of like its, manufacturing lifespan pretty much right now. And then the oldest EV is the Leaf in terms of like manufacturing and like that data. So like, I mean, essentially all these new vehicles that are coming out have been out for less than 2 years. So like, of course we don't have data on that. And you have Tesla, that's a startup company that is, incredibly established now, but like from like 2012 on, well, 2008 essentially, with the Roadster, they didn't have massive contracts with companies to build parts, and I could go on and on about this, but like but I agree with you. I'm in the same boat. Like I love new stuff, and of course you kind of become that like beta tester essentially. And that's exactly like where we faltered with buying that ID4, because it was such an early build. And I don't know why we got like, oh my god, the software is like breaking the car. We should have like
should have known.
So but
yeah, I'm the same way about like phones or new like tech products that come out. I want to have like the newest thing because I think it's cool, but I always try to like kind of take a step back, and I'm like, do I want something that's cool, or do I want something that works? Because I've run into that with a ton of phones. Like I didn't buy, but I actually won like the original Google Pixel in a contest.
Oh, cool.
And I got that phone and like immediately had issues like 3 months into owning it. And like it was an early production run issue because it was like a giveaway phone. They wanted to get it out to people as quick as they could. And that phone ended up having issues where the mic just completely stopped working. Like I couldn't make phone calls. So completely stopped working, had to get a replacement. And I've had that with other phones too. It's just kind of the early runs have random software quirks that they need to work out, or just the manufacturing hasn't spun up enough. So I think that's an issue across everything. It's not just EV specific.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting because, like, I just started diving into, like, the EV Misconception series Tyler and I are working on. Yeah. And I started diving into more of Recurrent's battery data reports. And just, transparency, Recurrent is sponsoring Everyday EV for our Misconception series. And their data reports are incredibly useful. But, like, the one trend that, like, we're noticing, and it's not Recurrent, it's the fact that their vehicles are so new that there's not enough data points. Like... to really be like, well, in 6 years, this is where the battery's going to be. But you have that for like old Model S's and like, the Chevy Bolt. Right. But it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out as more data comes together and gets gathered.
Definitely.
Yeah. For sure. Collected, gathered. Data gathering. I'm going to change my title to that.
Definitely. Well, anything else, or you want to wrap up here? We can talk about our merch discount.
Yes, I was just about to say, I think we should definitely talk about our merch discount.
Okay.
So, you made it this far in this episode.
Thank you for making it all the way through.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I was going to say, if my little tangent about Gigafactories didn't turn you off, we have a reward for you. Well, technically, a discount code. So, Alex, I'll let you do the shout
spiel.
Out.
Okay.
The spiel. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you go to the link in the show notes of this episode, it's actually hosted on my personal like YouTube shop, but I've got Living Electric stuff on there as well. So I'll link the collection down below. And what was I going to say? My merch is on there too. So if you want to pick up any of that launches should be launched by the time this episode goes live. But for Living Electric merch specifically, and for listeners, for the first 10 people that use this code, we're offering 10% off your entire order. So if you use code LEPOD10, so LEPOD 10, you can get 10% off your order, and that's limited to 10 people. So as soon as 10 people buy something with that code's gone forever. So make sure you get your orders in before people use that code.
Yes, definitely. And I just want to give a shout out to Alex because I've already said it many times. You did a great job with like our new branding and the new merchandise. So definitely go support the designs. It's awesome.
Yeah, we've got some cool stuff on there. We've got some t-shirts, we've got a mug, and then we've also got like kind of a monochrome embroidered hat too, which I'm curious to see. So so if you order anything as well, we've also got like kind of a small thank you for you. Should I share what it is? Like the little messages. So if you do order anything, you'll get like a personalized video message from Brandon and I. We just recorded our first one before this episode. So if you order anything, you'll get a little video message from both of us just thanking you. That's kind of a cool thing we were able to do with this. So
And if you don't, correct me if I'm wrong here. If you don't want to buy merchandise, there is a way to donate to help produce more content through that website as well.
Definitely. Yeah, so if you just scroll to the bottom, there's like a little donation thing too. If you don't feel like buying anything or you just want to help out the podcast, we certainly appreciate it.
Cool. Well, that was a great spiel. I was going to say, I feel like I wouldn't need to practice that, so. But
I feel like talking every week in like a performative voice for a podcast helps a lot to get better versed in that stuff.
I was going to say, by now, I feel like I should be better at this.
It's all good.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Living Electric, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Yep. See you later.